Airbnb describes itself as a community based on connection and belonging, a community that was born in 2008 when two hosts welcomed three guests into their San Francisco home and has since grown to 4 million hosts who have welcomed over 8 million guest arrivals to about 100,000 cities in almost every country and region across the globe. Those two hosts, along with a third friend, are not only the proud co-founders of Airbnb, but as a team, they haven't looked back and each play an important role within the business today. These three people are Brian Chesky, co-founder and current Chief Executive Officer, Nathan Blecharczyk, co-founder, Chief Strategy Officer and Chairman of Airbnb China, and Joe Gebbia, co-founder, Chairman of Samara and Airbnb.org. This documentary is the story how those three guys turned renting air mattresses in their apartment in today's $100 billion company. Across this documentary, we will take you through Airbnb's history, their road to success, their biggest milestones, and why consumers have been using their platform for so long. Let me take you back to the year 2007, where it all began with three elements: a problem, an idea, and an email. That problem started with Joe Gebbia and Brian Chesky, who couldn't afford their San Francisco rent. However, the pair knew a big design conference was coming to San Francisco, and it was making hotels hard to come by. This led to an email from Joe to Brian on September 22nd, 2007, with the subject, subletter. The email read, "Brian, I thought of a way to make a few bucks. Turning our place into a designer's bed and breakfast, offering young designers who come into town a place to crash during the 4-day event, complete with wireless internet, a small desk space, sleeping mat and breakfast each morning. Ha! Joe." The duo, who had met at college at the Rhode Island School of Design, thought acting as tour guides to designers would be a fun way to make money. They created a simple site, airbedandbreakfast.com, bought 3 air mattresses and arranged them in their loft. Their first guests, 2 men and 1 woman, showed up. Each guest paid $80 to stay on the air mattress. One guest, Amal Serve, who was a designer keen to attend the conference, actually helped Joe and Brian on their presentations. It was after that first day in the Ross Street San Francisco property that they soon realized how big their idea could be. They were quick to bring in their old roommate, Nathan Blecharczyk, and from there the trio set off on a journey which they could have never anticipated would grow to the scale of Airbnb today. It took some time with a few bumps along the way, but by summer 2008, the co-founders had finished the final version of Air Bed and Breakfast and went to meet with investors. The whole experience had been redesigned around taking only 3 clicks to book a stay. Otherwise, it was too hard. Investors weren't convinced. Introductions to 15 investors left them with 7 rejections and 8 people ignoring them entirely. However, the trio took their revenue raising into their own hands when an opportunity during the 2008 US election came along. To raise revenue, the guys transformed cereal boxes into Obama O's and Captain McCain's and sold them on the streets for $40 per box. Each one came with a limited edition number and information about the company. This bootstrapping marketing strategy netted them $30,000 to put towards the company. This started to gain the attention of venture capitalist Paul Graham, who saw potential in the trio from the moment he heard their story. Graham invited the trio to join Y Combinator, a prestigious startup accelerator that provides investment and training in exchange for a small slice of the company. The company spent the first 3 months of 2009 at the accelerator, working on perfecting their product and learning about how they could take Airbnb to the next level. 2009 was certainly a moment they saw their most elevated milestones. However, the journey was far from perfect as more setbacks continued to challenge the team. During Y Combinator, the trio was rejected famously by multiple investors. Fred Wilson of Union Squares Ventures admitted in 2011 that he had failed to look past the Air Bed and Breakfast name and couldn't see the business model taking shape. This was a decision Fred would later go on to regret, saying he simply couldn't imagine himself ever renting a mattress on the floor of a stranger's apartment. However, the boys didn't let any of these setbacks stop them from progressing. In March 2009, the company finally scrapped the Air Bed and Breakfast name and simplified it to today's name, Airbnb. There was no more confusing associations with the air mattress. Then, in April 2009, a breakthrough occurred when a $600,000 seed investment from Sequoia Capital came in. This was enough to hire a team and really gather momentum for the business during a turbulent time in America's history. This was, of course, the global financial crisis, which saw a devastating impact across employment and housing industries. People were hurting during the GFC, and they were desperate for ways to make ends meet. Airbnb was able to leverage this uncertain time to change the perception of homeowners. They marketed the Airbnb platform as a way to use your existing assets as a means to create additional income or supplement your existing income. In 2020, it was recorded that the average earnings of an Airbnb host was $7,900 US. In 2010, a shift had changed in the market, and Airbnb's momentum was not only growing in the US market, but attracting more investors from overseas and international venture capital groups. For the first time in their history, investors were now knocking at the door of Airbnb rather than the other way around. Suddenly, Airbnb was quick becoming a household name. Momentum continued in 2010 when Airbnb raised an impressive $7.1 million from venture capital firms. Shortly after that, celebrities such as Ashton Kutcher also saw potential in Airbnb's work, and he too invested in the growing business. Kutcher invested $2.5 million, which is now a stake worth approximately $90 million. Not only is he the owner of a large stake in the business, but he also secured a spot on the board as a strategic advisor. From then, Airbnb's success went from strength to strength, even securing some of the world's most desirable listings and properties, including an entire private island in Fiji. Not a bad place for a holiday destination. In 2010, Airbnb launched their own app and increasingly popular Instant Book feature, changing the way their customers can book and manage their accommodation needs. By 2011, Airbnb had rolled over the milestone of over 1 million listings across 89 countries. By late 2011, there was over 5 million registered users on the site. Then, of course, in June 2012, this doubled to 10 million users, and now in 2020, they have 150 million users in over 100,000 cities. In fact, on any given night, there are over 2 million people staying in an Airbnb home. Again, from strength to strength, impressive partnerships and exposure, Airbnb became the official alternative accommodations provider for the 2016 Rio Olympics. Then later in 2019, Airbnb announced a 10-year partnership with the International Olympic Committee. It is no surprise their business is estimated at close to $100 billion today. This figure was reported by The Guardian on the 11th of December 2020 after their entry to the stock market and going public with their company. In comparison, Airbnb now has more than 7 million short-term listings available worldwide across their website. At $100 billion, this would be estimated at twice the value of the Marriott, the world's largest hotel operator. So whilst the company struggled during the early months of the coronavirus pandemic as travel ground to a halt, confidence in their stock exchange price is clear, since bookings have bounced back in countries where lockdowns have ended and a return to life has started. Airbnb has remained humbled in their business growth, continuously giving back to communities where their business has grown from. Because of this approach, their customers remain loyal and supportive, as Airbnb is seen as one of the world's most trusted brands. Recently, Airbnb has introduced a new project called Airbnb.org. The project is designed as a non-profit organization that connects people to places to stay in times of crisis. In fact, the inspiration for Airbnb.org began in 2012 with a single host named Shell who opened up her home to people impacted by Hurricane Sandy. Since then, the program has evolved to focus on emergency response and to help people provide stays to evacuees, relief workers, refugees, asylum seekers, and most recently, the frontline workers fighting the spread of COVID-19. From Australia to France, more than 100,000 hosts have offered to open up their homes and help provide accommodation to 75,000 people in times of needs. Further to the Airbnb.org, this company also recently launched an initiative called Project Lighthouse. Project Lighthouse is a research initiative in the United States that aims to measure bias through perception based on names and photos to determine when and where bias happens on the platform, from bookings through to reviews. Airbnb worked to eliminate such discrimination from its platform by hiding guest profile pictures until a booking is confirmed, hiring anti-discrimination specialists to audit the platform, and creating a reporting channel to identify listings not complying with its non-discrimination policy. The company said it's removed 1.3 million offenders. It goes to show Airbnb does an excellent job of not just talking the talk, but they also walk the walk. While we've recognised the challenges faced in 2020, Airbnb has remained optimistic about what will come next. In a recent interview with the New York Times, co-founder Brian Chesky said, "Before the pandemic, you lived somewhere 50 to 51 weeks of the year. And if you were so fortunate, you'd go on your once or twice a year vacation. The pandemic is changing how people want to work, travel, and live. People are living differently, and people want to live anywhere. Since the pandemic has begun, there has been a large interest in listings outside of dense urban areas, demonstrating the needs of people who want to get out of the city. It's kind of redeemed our vision," he said. "What I would love is to be able to help spread travel out to as many communities as possible, rather than over-concentrating them in one space." A lot can be learnt by the impressive rise of Airbnb. It all started with a problem, an idea, and then an email. If 2020 has taught us anything about the possibility of our future, one thing's remained the same. Brands who remain agile and focused with people at the heart of them will always succeed.